We've seen alien invasions, time travel, gender swaps, cursed swords, haunted butts, and a samurai who fights with a wooden sword and 0 life goals. Somehow in between the poop jokes and anime parodies, they slipped in heartbreak, heroism, and a few existential crises. The only show where plot lines are allergic to logic, and the whole show is based on sheer stupidity. So hold on to your dignity, if you still have any, and let's recap the most gloriously unhinged anime ever made, Gintama, where the only rule is that there are no rules, especially not budget-related ones. In a world unlike the one you're in, the land of Edo, Japan, but one that's changed thanks to the arrival of the Amanto, who have forced the samurai to cast away their swords. Edo overrun by aliens. Samurai outlawed. Chaos, that's the new normal. Here, there's a boy named Shinbachi who's kneeling by his father, who's not long for this world, along with his sister. Sworn to keep the honor of the samurai in him, he works in a cafe to make money, but is often insulted by the customers and the boss. One day, some Amanto were in a mood to be rough, but Shinbachi was saved thanks to a mysterious silver-haired man named Sakata Gintoki. There was an incident involving an arrest, but Gintoki ended up going to the dojo where Shinbachi and his sister Otae explained their situation of owing an alien money. After helping Shinbachi and his sister, Gintoki reluctantly allows Shinbachi to join Odd Jobs Gin out of gratitude and admiration. Half a month later, the duo puts a young girl in the hospital, but there's no need since she's actually a Yato, a remarkably strong alien species, and her name is Kagura, and she's been hunted by the Yakuza. A little reluctant, they help her deal with her ties to the organization, and she admits that she likes fighting, but she also wants to fight her bloodthirsty Yato nature and become a member of Odd Jobs Gin. Sometime later, at the Yorozuya, or Odd Jobs Gin, Kagura reads up on an unknown terrorist who they later discover is called Katsura, an old comrade of Gintoki. Oh, and that package? Yeah, it's a literal bomb. Classic Katsura. It's revealed that the package they were delivering was to destroy the Inui embassy, a plot by him to get involved in his anti-foreigner movement. Meanwhile, the Shinsengumi are introduced as Hijikata informs Kondo of Yamazaki spying on Katsura. In the end, they stop the bomb, and Katsura shows that he's relieved that, despite it all, Gintoki is the same. After the incident, the trio are interrogated by the Shinsengumi and are eventually let go, but find themselves involved in a poorly planned kidnapping where they're taken away to a concert for the pop star Otsu, and Shinbachi is the president of the fan club. The kidnapper is Otsu's estranged father, who had to leave to protect her image but wanted to see her once. He protects her from an Amanto attack, and the day ends with Otsu singing a song for her father. From fanboy tears to family reconciliation, Shinbachi's idol trauma turns into a punch-you-in-the-feels side quest. The Yorozuya find themselves involved in a missing pet case for Prince Hata thanks to the government official Daizo Hasegawa. Turns out the pet Beisu was very deadly when in water, and Hasegawa, who was determined to keep the prince happy, killed the pet to save Shinbachi and punched the prince for being a brat, which naturally led him to being fired. At a later time, the Shinsengumi, the Special Force Police, conducted a raid on some terrorists and won easily thanks to Hijikata and Okita. The two wonder about their captain, Isao Kondo's location, and it turns out he's in the hostess bar Snack Smile, where he tries to woo Otae and fails miserably. He's later found stalking Otae by the Yorozuya, and Otae uses this to say Gintoki is her fiancé, which leads him to challenging Gin to a duel. After some hijinks, the two bond a little and agree to duel with wooden swords, but Gin cheats and gives a weaker sword to Kondo, leading him to lose. After hearing of Kondo's defeat, Hijikata confronts Gintoki and defeats him to regain Kondo's honor. He's ultimately beaten, and the two gain some insight and begrudging respect for each other over their desire to protect what they value. Later, Kagura was walking from a stone and noticed a giant dog at the Yorozuya office door with a note saying to take care of him. Gintoki and Shinbachi didn't want anything to do with him, but Kagura had already named the dog Sadaharu and wished to keep him because of her past history with another pet. They had some trouble with Prince Hata, but ultimately, Sadaharu became part of the Yorozuya as the mascot. Afterwards, they're at the hospital because Shinbachi's leg broke during the incident, and it's where they meet an old man who promised his fortune to find the owner of a hairpin he has. It turns out that the man is broke, but his story of longing convinced them to still search, and Sadaharu managed to find the owner, who is in fact Otose, the owner of Otose's snack house and Gintoki's landlady. In the end, he passes away just after seeing her at last, and the crew's reminded of how impressive a woman she was in the past. Speaking of, during one of her nights, as Otose was closing shop, she spotted a cat-eared Amanto named Catherine and invited her to be a part-time employee at her snack bar. Customers have been reporting items missing, and it turns out to be Catherine who's been sneaking around and stealing them. She's caught by Otose, and Catherine insults her, saying she's naive for being so trusting, which Otose reminds by admitting it's true, but she can't help it and recounts how she met Gintoki, who was at her husband's grave, demanding a dango from her. He thanks her for the meal and swears to protect her. Catherine then tries to run her over but is stopped by Gintoki and sent to prison with a promise from Otose that she can come back if she wants to, and she did. Sometime after, Katsura goes to visit Yorozuya only to find their base empty. Turns out that they were looking for a missing person on request for their client, but Gintoki gets drugged as a result and hallucinates his time in the war. He recovers thanks to Katsura, but they learn that this is the result of the Harusame, the largest space pirate organization, and they've kidnapped Shinpachi and Kagura. They are rescued but have put themselves on the radar of these pirates and the Tendoshu. The aftermath of this involves Kagura meeting a young girl who asks to be friends for a day. The two bond quickly and swear to become friends forever, as Kagura finally makes her first friend, who's her age and is now linked with no ordinary girl but Princess Soyo, sister of the Shogun. Meanwhile, Gintoki and Katsura get into a competition as the two fight to see whose pet is better, Sadaharu or Elizabeth, the strange duck creature. It ends as one would expect, in both failing. Things take a darker turn one night as Katsura is confronted by an old comrade, Takasugi Shinsuke, who claims to be here for the festival. Meanwhile, the Yorozuya are dealing with the eccentric inventor Gengai, who's making robots for the festival, and they learn that his son was killed in the Amanto War and made those robots to rampage across town. Turns out Takasugi manipulated Gengai through his grief, but Gintoki reminds him of the words his son spoke and calms his fury. Things calm down, but Takasugi later remarks to Katsura that he just wants to watch the world burn. Many more events take place as time marches, like meeting the love-struck ninja Ayame Sarutobi, who's head over heels for Gintoki, meeting another of Gintoki's war comrades, Tatsuma Sakamoto, being introduced to Saigo Tokumori, the once war veteran now Okama, or bringing Shinpachi's old friend Hachibe Takaya away from the gang life and into the world of pop idol fandom. But things get more serious when the Yorozuya find themselves involved in an underground fighter ring called Rengokukan, and their strongest fighter is Kidomaru thanks to the Shinsengumi. Turns out the man's taking care of some orphans as his way of atonement for his past, only to later die as a result of the Tendoshu, the owners of the ring, covering their tracks, and the Yorozuya find themselves once again understanding the depths of the evil of this organization. Soon after, the Yorozuya get a visit from a famous alien hunter, Umibozu, who's considered one of the strongest men in the galaxy and is Kagura's father. He takes her back to their home, but Kagura doesn't want to, as she remembers all the time her father promised things would be better as her mother was ill and her brother was away, only for the father to never be there for her when her mother died. Gintoki let them go because he thought it was for the best, but an alien attack had him and Umibozu band together to stop it, and the Yato began to appreciate the family she's found and left her there. One day, as Gin was getting up from bed, he noticed a giant-sized Sadaharu in his living room with Shinpachi and Kagura in his mouth. As Sadaharu continues to grow in size, two Shinto priestesses, Mone and Ane, see a news report about a growing dog rampaging and rush to the scene where they explain that Sadaharu is no ordinary dog but an Inugami, a guardian, and the two sisters had to give him away because they couldn't afford to keep him. They managed to calm him down and fix him up, but the Yorozuya learn of the energy hidden in Edo Dome, and how the priests were once there to guard and protect it until the Amanto came in. Speaking of leaving things at the door, one day Gintoki spots a baby at his doorstep, one who looks remarkably like him. It seems he's wrapped up in some drama as the child's being hunted by dangerous men. Things clear up as Shinpachi and Kagura find the baby's mother, and she explains that the baby is being searched for by her lover's father in order to raise it for his company as his sickly son passed away. They're confronted by the blind samurai Okada Nizo, and after a dangerous battle, Gintoki wins and the grandfather and mother reconcile. This wasn't the last we'd see of Okada Nizo, as one of the Yorozuya get two requests, one from Elizabeth to search for Katsura and another from a blacksmith to look for a deadly blade, Benizakura. Though the cases seem related, the Yorozuya keep bumping into each other in their search, and they soon discover that Katsura had been attacked by someone wielding that blade, and it was none other than the blind swordsman Okada at the order of Takasugi in some civil war between them. They manage to defeat him thanks to the blacksmith's sister's sword, and the Shinsengumi are keeping a close eye on Gintoki after learning this. With time, a new addition was brought to the Otose family as Gintoki finds the head of a robot and recruits Gengai to fix her up, and they discover she's a robot maid they now call Tama. They also get to know more of Otai's history, while Kondo was getting into an arranged marriage with a gorilla. An old childhood friend of Otai named Kyubei Yagyu took her away to their family house in order to get married. Yorozuya and the Shinsengumi team up to get her back and engage in battles with some of the best swordsmen in Edo, while we learn that Otai had made a childhood promise to marry Kyubei, who was raised as a boy due to the Yaguyu's family traditions, though Kyubei is actually a woman. The two reconcile their feelings and agree to start up their relationship, ending with a new friend and ally. Meanwhile, things are going on with the Shinsengumi as Hijikata deals with a cursed sword. Still, more importantly, the advisor for the organization, Ito Kamataro, returns after some time away, but there's something up with him and many of the officers. Kondo seems to dismiss Hijikata's worry about Ito, but it turns out he's partnered with the Kiheitai, the extremist version of Katsura's organization run by Takasugi. He attempts to kill Kondo with the help of Kiheitai officer Kawakami Bansai, but is soon betrayed as they want the Shinsengumi wiped out. The civil war between them ends with Hijikata killing Ito, but granting him a farewell worthy of an officer. Beneath this city of eternal night, a daughter meets her mother and a brother comes to kill. Back in Yorozuya, Gintoki finds himself pickpocketed, but the kid gets a turn for the worst as his wallet is empty while the thief's wallet is in Gintoki's hands. It turns out the kid is stealing to collect enough money to meet the #1 courtesan in Yoshiwara, whom he believes to be his mother. Gintoki helps him, but the Yorozuya soon get involved in a grand conspiracy involving the king of Yoshiwara, the Yato Hosen, and his iron grip on keeping the district in darkness. This is also when we meet the Kunoichi Tsukuyo, who works to keep the women in the district safe and is a loyal follower of Hinawa, the #1 courtesan and mother of Saita, the thief. They run into trouble as Kagura's brother Kamui appears and, out of whim, slaughter many of Tsukuyo's forces while his right hand Abuto faces Kagura and Shinpachi. The battle led to Kagura in a Yato frenzy, nearly killing the man, but Shinpachi stopped her in time. Meanwhile, the combined forces of Gintoki, Tsukuyo, and the other women attempt to bring down Hosen, one of the strongest Yatos, and after a hard battle, they win and open the roofs for the district and allow them to see the sunlight at last. Things rarely stay peaceful for the Yorozuya, as Gintoki's favorite weather reporter, Getsuno Ana, has been giving inaccurate reports after a very long streak. One night, she comes to visit the Yorozuya for help in finding out why. They soon get involved in a family feud involving demons and spirits as they learn Getsuno is an Onmyoji cursed by the rival family Onmyoji who was trying to summon a great demon. They learn of the complicated and tragic history between Getsuno and the main villain, and after a battle and some lost balls, they resolve the conflict and stop the demonic rise, and Getsuno returns to her career, and the Yorozuya gains an alliance with the Onmyoji. One day, Kabukicho, the district where the Yorozuya stay, is visited by a young girl named Birako Chin, who comes here to find the strongest swordsman and so goes to join the Yorozuya, which they accept reluctantly as they sense a dangerous bloodlust in her, which isn't helped by the fact that she keeps claiming to want to make Gintoki the #1 man in Kabukicho. Things get complicated when Birako picks a fight with some Yakuza, all the while the 4 Deva meeting was happening. Speaking of, the 4 Devas consists of the 4 most influential figures in Kabukicho. They include Saigo Tokumori, owner of the Okuma club Gamako, the Amanto Kujaku Himekada, leader of most gambling outfits in Kabukicho, Otose of Otose Snack House, and Doromizu Jirocho, leader of the Yakuza there. They come to an agreement for a ceasefire, and the one to break it will be targeted by the others, which is unfortunate since Pikaro's actions later led to the death of Kurogoma Katsuo, the right hand of Jirocho, whom she's the daughter of and the reason she's here. This leads to a war between Yorozuya against most of Kabukicho that ends up causing Otose to be in the hospital. Gintoki goes into a deep rage and goes to confront the man who did this, Jirocho. Also, it turns out that Katsuo was alive and well, and this whole event was actually a scheme by Kujaku to eliminate the Devas and take control of Kabukicho, which Jirocho knew and was playing along in order to get the opportunity to strike. We learned that he and Otose shared a past where he and another man were in love with her, but she chose the other man, which led to the two growing distant, but the feelings never faded. He and Gintoki team up after a fight and take down the Amanto, and in the end, Jirocho retires to be with his daughter, whom he basically left alone for many years in his crusade against these Amanto. Since then, the Yorozuya have gone on many adventures, whether it's trading a monkey for a prince, landing in jail, or ending up in a skiing resort with the Shogun, all happens to lead to them becoming more involved with major figures. Yet things are rarely at peace in Edo, as the Shinsengumi are caught up in another bout of political turmoil as they have some rivals to contend with. The Mimawari Gumi, a police force directly under the control of the shogunate. It all starts when the Shinsengumi gains a new, incompetent recruit, Tetsunosuke Sasaki. Initially disrespectful, Hijikata whips him into shape as we learn he was looked down on as the bastard child and was sent here so he doesn't embarrass the family further, but he took this opportunity to become a better man. During some incidents, Gintoki is arrested by the Mimawari Gumi, and Hijikata meets the captain of the force, Isaburo Sasaki, who's the half-brother of Tetsu. Hijikata loses his temper over the captain's dismissive nature of his brother, and we learn that Hijikata had a similar situation to Tetsunosuke, with his family hating him, but his half-brother was his one light, and because he knows the pain of being deemed worthless, he fights hard for Tetsu's sake. Meanwhile, Gintoki is forced on an assignment to infiltrate the Check It Out gang who've kidnapped Tetsu. Both Shinsengumi and Mimawari Gumi arrive to negotiate, but Isaburo doesn't care about the hostage and orders his men to kill them all, leading to Hijikata fighting him while Okita faces his match against Nobume Imai, Isaburo's right hand. However, Gintoki manages to rescue the hostage. The police forces take the gang out, and both groups now have tension brewing between them as the lines between what they're loyal to are clear, as the Shinsengumi wish to protect the citizens while the Mimawari Gumi protect the elite and only what the shogunate desires. Gintoki's life doesn't get easier as he now finds his entire shtick taken by a man named Kintoki, who is basically a blonde version of him. It also seems that people no longer remember Gintoki, and it seems to center around this new stranger who appears to be more charming, helpful, and likable than Gintoki. Only Tama seems to remember him, and the two work to figure out what's wrong. Gintoki was created by Gengai after misinterpreting Kagura and Shinpachi's wish for a more reliable leader while Gintoki was away. Now, his illusion is capturing everyone around him and taking over his life. After some reality warping shenanigans, Gintoki is defeated because the bond between friends ran deeper than his illusions, and everything returns to normal, with the Gengai holding on to the Kintoki robot's core. Sometime after that, Gintoki gets invited back to Yoshiwara to meet the legendary courtesan Suzuran. He learns that she's in fact an old lady, still working because she's waiting for the love of her life, a man who swore to meet her again in the next full moon. Gintoki and Tsukuyo decide to find this man for her and wind up going to the shogun's palace as they learn that the lover was the former shogun Sada. Thanks to Kagura's friendship with Princess Soyo, who's the little sister of the shogun Shige, they enter the palace with ease, but soon become involved in a conspiracy as they learn that the former shogun Tokugawa is a corrupt man who allied with the Tendoshu in order to control Edo from the shadows and isn't the one Suzuran was waiting for. That is Rotten Maizo, a loyal servant of the shogun family who was forbidden from seeing Suzuran by Tokugawa and lost his arm. Now, things get deadly when Sada tries to stop their reunion again, leading to Gintoki and the others fighting back and being struck by the Tensho in Naraku, an assassination unit that seems to serve the former shogun but is basically an agent of the Tendoshu. Gintoki faces off against their leader Oboro, who seems to know Gintoki and his master. As they battle, the former shogun heads off to the ship for him, but the shogun arrives and stops the fight as he learns the atrocities his uncle had committed. Tokugawa believes he's escaped, but Gintoki and the others snuck aboard his ship and beat the man and Oboro. A member of the Tendoshu arrives and takes Sada away as he is theirs, while the shogun manages to defuse the tension and stop the war by handing in his resignation. Later, while imprisoned for his failure, Sada is killed by Takasugi and the Kiheitai, leading to the Tendoshu refusing Shige's resignation, but the country is now in turmoil and under martial law. Meanwhile, Gintoki and the others sneak Maizo out of the palace to meet his love, who's not long for this world. Maizo rushes to the meeting place they promised, which is now just an alleyway with a telephone pole, where the two lovers meet at last, and it feels to them as it did all those years ago. Yet the past is not done. Introducing itself again as Shinpachi and Otae reunite with an old student of their dojo, Obi Hajime, a prodigious swordsman who vanished mysteriously after a teleportation incident, but it turns out he ended up on a planet that taught him the art of beam sword fighting, and he wanted to introduce it in the dojo. Shinpachi also drops the info that Obi was Otae's first love, causing some drama with Kyubei and Kondo, who gets into shenanigans with Obi. It's soon discovered that Obi didn't come back whole as he was rebuilt into a cyborg by the beam Amanto and implanted with a bomb that will either self-destruct and destroy the planet or launch a blast that will plunge the galaxy into war. Gintoki tries to stop Obi, who's slowly losing himself to his machine part, but Shinpachi tries to stop the fighting as he still cares for his older brother figure. In the end, Shinpachi himself stops Obi from killing Gintoki and declares that this creature, now called Kenofi, isn't his brother. In the end, Obi gains some shred of himself and fires the blast at the Amanto, saving the Earth and stopping the villains as the two siblings tried to smile for Obi's sake but couldn't stop their tears. Walking back home drunk one night, Gintoki is approached by a Shinigami-looking fellow who asks for help committing seppuku. Turns out it's a young woman named Ikeda Asemon, who's an executioner of the Ikeda clan. Meanwhile, the Shinsengumi discover another victim with their head nearly decapitated, save a sliver of skin, a flawless technique used by none other but the masters of the Ikeda clan. The Yorozuya help her and discover she's innocent of the crimes, according to the 18th head of the clan, Yaemon. They go to smuggle her out, only for the Shinsengumi to show up, as Yaemon has sold them out to the Hitotsubashi faction. We soon learn that Gintoki had unknowingly played a part in Asemon's father's death, a truth that Yaemon uses to manipulate her. In the end, there was some remorse in him, so Yaemon went to hold off the faction while the others escaped, which led to his death by Nobunobu, the head of the Hitotsubashi faction. Asemon releases herself from the guilt and finally goes to live her life while honoring her clan. The political climate in Edo reaches a boiling point, and the Yorozuya are in the middle of it. The shogun Shige finds himself the target of an assassination plot by Nobunobu and his allies, the Gihetai and the Harusame. As such, Gatakuriko Matsudaira, the head of the police department, concocted a plan to smuggle him to Kyo with the help of the Oniwa Banshu, Shinsengumi and the Yorozuya, thanks to some decoy shoguns. Things seemed to be going well initially, but it turns out Hanzo, the leader of the Oniwa Banshu, betrayed them and cut the head of Shige while the rest of the forces were fighting for the Yatos and other enemies, with Okita nearly dying to Kamui. This is also where we learn more about the history of this ninja and his relationship with Shige, as when they were children, the young shogun had to hide amongst the ninjas, and there he formed a bond with many of the people there, including Hattori. Back in the present, the remaining retainers were attacked by the Iga, ninjas with no loyalties, and just as they were about to be killed, they were saved by a mysterious ninja and their old allies, but the greater reveal is the living Shige. Turns out Hattori isn't a traitor, and the man he killed was a body double and an old friend. They all traveled to Iga Ninja Village for safety, but are soon followed by the Yato mercenaries, whom the Yorozuya and friends fight with great difficulty. Kamui and Takasugi soon appear from a secret tunnel but are ambushed with kunais, with enough time for Gintoki and Kagura to appear and fight them. This is where we learn of Gintoki's history and how he was a student for a man named Yoshida Shoyo, who opened a school that he, Katsura and Takasugi were a part of. This is where we also learn about Takasugi's rage, as during the Joei War they all fought, the Tendoshu captured their teacher and made Gintoki choose between his friends or his teacher, and Gin killed Shoyo. In the present, Oboro appears and stabs Takasugi, stating that he's been betrayed by Nobunobu, who's now been declared shogun by the Tendoshu thanks to Shige's resignation letter in the past. They manage to escape, and the shogun is with the emperor, but sadly, he's later killed by a poison needle. Days after Shige's funeral, the Shinsengumi and Katsura's factions have many of their men arrested, including the leader, because of Nobunobu's rise to power. The Shinsengumi launch a prison break and rescue their allies, but are hindered by the Tensho in Naraku and the Mimawari Gumi. But then Isaburo makes a switch and betrays them and helps the gang escape. Then comes the arrival of Utsuro, a Tendoshu who demolishes his opponents. We also learn the history of Isaburo and Nobume, as she was part of the Tenshoin and was sent to assassinate Isaburo's family, but instead betrayed her organization and went to protect them, but failed. The two joined together to get their revenge on the people who caused their pain. We learn that Utsuro is actually the original form of Yoshida Shoyo, Gintoki's teacher, who split from his more compassionate self. The heroes managed to escape thanks to the sacrifice of Isaburo, as the Shinsengumi go to join Katsura's faction, taking down the new regime. Weeks later, as all parties are in hiding, the Yorozuya, Katsura, and the Kiheitai team up to stop Utsuro, who's decided to deal with Takasugi and Kamui, but also has business with the alien hunter Umibozu. We learn more about the history of Kagura's family and how Umibozu met his wife, a powerful, immortal Yato living alone on a planet, and after many attempts, the two get together and depart, but with every year she got weaker, and Umibozu set off the world many times to find a cure and discovers Altana, a powerful energy that kept her alive, and is the main reason the Tendoshu are after Earth. He resolves the long-standing conflict with his son thanks to the Yorozuya, but they're soon interrupted by Oboro, whom they beat and learn that he's the first disciple of Utsuro. They learn of his past as an immortal and how much he suffered, which caused his multiple personality disorder. He created the Tensho in Naraku, and after his death, joined the Amanto under the condition that they could experiment on him if they could find a way for him to die. Meanwhile, Utsuro meets the Tendoshu and tells them how he destroyed their influence by wiping out planets and blaming them, and showing that he had acquired their key, which controls their Altana source, and will now use it on Earth to finally free himself of existence. Without the Tendoshu, the galaxy is freer, and now many factions are rising and they're heading for Earth in what will be an epic battle. The battle begins and looks like Utsuro is going to get his wish, a universal war to destroy it all, but through the actions of people like the Shinsengumi and Katsura's Joey, and even the sacrifice of Nobunobu, they stave off the invasion and battle Utsuro, which takes the entire might of every character from the Yato to the Shinsengumi to the Yorozuya, and Sadaharu's sacrifice in keeping the Altana from spilling. In the end, while the Earth survived, Utsuro got his wish as he was consumed by the Altana, seeming to end his existence. 2 years have passed since then, and the Yorozuya have been disbanded this whole time as Gintoki's been missing. Shinpachi and Kagura finally meet while Gintoki reunites with Takasugi, and the two compare what they've learned, like how Utsuro is still alive and Gintoki soon finds him as a baby, and he watches as he grows rapidly day by day. He seems to be the Shoujo version, but is soon taken by the Tensho in Naraku. But not before he hands Gintoki his heart and tells him that Utsuro can't exist any longer. Takasugi, meanwhile, is being consumed by Utsuro and eventually transforming into him. Gintoki soon returns to Kabukicho and, after some hijinks, is reunited with his friends. Things don't stay peaceful as the Tendoshu forces have taken the terminal, and so the heroes band together to stop them once and for all. They seem to be controlled by Utsuro, who is fully awakened, thanks to the Tendoshu using his blood for immortality. Each one goes off to face one deadly foe after another, and even Sadaharu returns to help them. Eventually, Gintoki faces Utsuro, who's taken over Takasugi alone, and the two go into a deadly clash, but Gintoki wins in the end thanks to Takasugi's will, while Shinpachi and Kagura rescue Shoujo. The Altana in the Terio is reaching critical mass, so Shoujo pushes it back and says farewell to Gintoki, his student, and disappears. At some point in the future, Tama goes around meeting everyone, and the Yorozuya beat up Hasegawa for telling a fake epilogue. They eventually run off to a task they forgot, but it doesn't matter, they're the Yorozuya. Phew! And that's it. Gintama is hands down one of the most entertaining anime I've ever come across. I'm not sure who exactly asked for a recap, but here you go. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and share it with anyone who might be missing out on this absolute gem. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, if there's any other anime you'd like a recap of, then just drop your suggestions below. Thanks for watching, I'll see you soon.